Welcome, everybody. Let's pray. God, thank you for bringing us together again tonight to continue to study your word and the story of your people, Israel, Samuel, Saul, and David. Help us tonight to open our hearts and our minds to hear what you would have to say to us, as always, that we can discuss with one another, teach us your ways, and draw us closer together in Christian fellowship and love. We love you, God. We lift these things up to you in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Okay. All right. Well, welcome everybody. I do have our I went ahead and just put a basket over there for if anybody has dollar bills for Christmas families. I know you guys met.
Had a great meeting. Everything's really well aligned for the process to get underway right away. So
Fantastic. So we'll hear more about that in future weeks once we get the families and start working on that. And then we have for our snack, Larry's going to be out next week, so is not able to provide. So if anybody else is able to fill in the gap for next week, let me know. I've got the sign up genius.
I was gonna say, where's the paper?
I've got it over there on the
Okay.
table. We take it, Susan?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
I think I can make banana bread.
All right. Fantastic. And then, because Ed, I think you're signed up for maybe the following week.
Well, I was gonna trade with Larry.
Oh,
Oh, did you get it?
Oh, I don't have.
I'll let you guys fight over it. Yeah, I've got the sign up over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Paper, and then we can pass it around.
And that's all that I have. So I'll have popcorn order for him next week. I forgot to bring it tonight. So,
Me too.
Gary, I think Owen already got to you.
Yeah, I won't be here. I won't be here next week or the week after.
Okay.
Yeah, you're on there for the 23rd. So next week is.
No, that's fine. All right,
No.
well, let's go ahead and get started then. So we had
Yeah, he's off.
finished chapter 6 last week, and that was finishing up with the Ark narrative. So we saw how the Ark was taken by the Philistines and then started causing all sorts of trouble for them, and then was returned to Israel. And so now we're going to be 20 years later and reading chapter 7. So what I'd like for us to do is to go ahead and read through chapter 7. So who would like to read chapter 7 for us?
I can.
Okay, thank you, Carol.
So the people of Kiriath Jearim came and took the Ark of the Covenant. They brought it to Abinadab's house, which was on the hill. Then they dedicated Eleazar, Abinadab's son, to care for the Ark of the Covenant. Now, a long time passed, a total of 20 years, after the Ark of the Covenant came to stay in Kiriath Jearim, and the whole house of Israel yearned for the Lord. Then Samuel said to the whole house of Israel, "If you are turning to the Lord with all your heart, then get rid of all the foreign gods and the Astartes."
Ashtaroth.
Well, that's not the way it's spelled in mine. Set your heart on the Lord, worship him only. Then he will deliver you from the Philistines' power. So the Israelites got rid of the Baals and the Astartes and worshiped the Lord only. It's spelled Astartes.
Oh, it's spelled in mine too.
On the end of it.
Yeah.
Next Samuel said, "Assemble all Israel at Mizpah. I will pray to the Lord for you." So they assembled at Mizpah, and they drew water and poured it out in the Lord's presence. They fasted that same day and confessed, "We have sinned against the Lord." Samuel served as judge of the Israelites at Mizpah. When the Philistines heard that the Israelites had assembled at Mizpah, the Philistine rulers went up to attack Israel. When the Israelites learned of this, they were afraid of the Philistines. The Israelites said to Samuel, "Please don't stop praying to the Lord our God for us, so God will save us from the Philistines' power." So Samuel took a suckling lamb and offered it as an entirely burned offering to the Lord. Samuel cried out in prayer to the Lord for Israel, and the Lord answered him. While Samuel was offering the entirely burnt offering, the Philistines advanced to attack Israel. But the Lord thundered against the Philistines with a great blast on that very day, throwing the Philistines into such a panic that they were defeated by Israel. The Israelite soldiers came out of Mizpah and pursued the Philistines. They struck them down until they reached a place just below Bethkar. Then Samuel took a stone and set it up between Mizpah and Jeshanah. He named it Ebenezer, explaining, "The Lord helped us to this very point." So the Philistines were defeated and they stopped coming into Israelite territory. The Lord's hand was against the Philistines throughout Samuel's life. The towns the Philistines had captured from Israel, from Ekron to Gath, were returned to Israel. Israel also recovered the territory around those two cities from the Philistines. And there was peace between Israel and the Amorites. Samuel served as Israel's judge his whole life. Each year he traveled between Bethel, Gilgal, and Mizpah, serving as Israel's judge in each of those locations. Then he would return to Ramah because that's where the home was. And Ramah, too, he served as Israel's judge, and that is also where he built an altar to the Lord.
Okay, thank you, Carol. Thank you.
Nice job, Carol.
All right. All right, so let's go back here to the beginning of the chapter. And before we get into our discussion, any clarifying questions that anyone has about the chapter or particular comments that struck you as you were following along? Pretty straightforward.
Had to keep changing some words because mine calls the Ark of the Covenant the Lord's chest.
Ah.
Oh, wow.
okay.
That's interesting.
Very different.
Like says the ark is the
Chest.
Ark of the Lord.
Mhm.
Mhm. Right. So this first part, verses 3 and 4, Samuel says to all of Israel, put away the foreign gods and return to the Lord, and that's how he will deliver you from Philistines. So they did. This seems like a tale as old as time for the Israelites, right? They're always going after other gods. And it's always causing problems for them. So, in today's time, we don't really have, I mean, there are other religions out there, right? But other gods doesn't seem to be as much of a temptation for us in terms of idolatry, but certainly we do have idols that we follow instead of God. So what are some of the idols, I guess, that have been difficult in your life or that you see other people going after, and how can we take steps to put them away? Yeah, the one big one.
Honey. Power.
Honey.
Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift. Oh.
Sports.
Sports teams,
Oh, no.
the Buckeyes.
There'd be a lot of-
That's what Larry said.
Self, people that just are into themselves and nobody else, and it seems to be epidemic nowadays.
Yeah, like the me time, when they're always talking about the me time, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm always first, me this, me that.
Does anybody have a story of a time when you realized something had become an idol? Or maybe a friend or a family member?
I have heard people say a statement about maybe a person that's in the family that they have young children or grandchildren and they say he idolizes his grandfather or something such as that. That's pretty common.
I guess I'm kind of embarrassed to admit I've never idolized any.
I haven't either.
Yeah.
I don't think that's embarrassing to say that.
Was it?
I think that's very
Honorable, very-
honorable to
Exactly.
be able to say.
I'm not awake, huh?
No.
No, you're right on.
To say you're idolizing a child is like, I'm
A
very,
grandparent.
a grandparent, I'm very pleased with that child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not, I think, in a negative connotation.
No, but.
I have known people that retire from one job and then they go full-time into another job and they retire from that and then into another job and they retire and then they stand around complaining about working all the time.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, how much is enough? How much do you need? Are you gonna have a Brinks truck follow your hearse? What, I mean, why don't you just give it up and enjoy life a little bit? Sit back and relax, travel, do something, see. So I don't know whether they, that's an idol to them or what. Maybe work is an idol to somebody. They're just workaholics, work all the time.
So
Getting it.
I'm a cardiologist,
Mhm.
and I will say that many physicians fall into the trap of idolizing other things. And whether that's because it is a very hard field and there's lots of difficult things that they see, but that we see. But I think that I have seen many colleagues get sort of consumed by the financial piece of it. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
think you're exactly right. I mean, you can't take it with you.
Oh,
And I see it in my younger colleagues, this very, I see more and more people focused on everything has to be equal, right? That we all should be earning exactly the same thing. And well, if this person earns more than me, why is that person earning more than me? And because all of this is now sort of public knowledge, I mean, you can find this anywhere. And I don't know if it's part of that generation where everybody got a medal and everybody should be the same. And so I see a lot of it and it gets, and it eats away at that. Why is this person earning $5 more than me when we're doing the same job? And so that's a place where I would say I see it. I see it in what I do. And I think it does, but I see that a lot.
The Israelites here are, hi, Steve, welcome, by the way, we're in chapter 7, verses 3 and 4. Baal was the Canaanite storm god and chief god related to the fertility of the land. And Astarte or Ashtaroth, depending on your translation, was the Canaanite goddess of fertility and closely associated with Baal as well. So, and Baal brings the rain. And so this is an agricultural society they're really dependent on the rain. And it's for their survival. And so it's kind of like they're trying to trust in other deities, other things that will help take care of them rather than putting their trust in God. And I think there's a lot of things in our life that we treat that way. I think even just modern comforts, the comfort of modern living. We put our trust in our retirement accounts. We put our trust in our government, we put our trust in our homes, I guess, to keep us safe. And we put our trust in ourselves to maintain all of those things, yeah. And I certainly find myself getting into the trap of, you know, trying to make sure that focusing on what I can do to make sure my family has everything they need to survive rather than putting God first, you know, try to remember to put God first. And that, you know, anything could happen, really. We try to mitigate risk, but anything could happen tomorrow.
The people at this time, often wonder too, what their knowledge level of God was. I think there's still a group of people, even though their ancestors saw God lead them out of Egypt and into the promised land and through the wilderness and so forth and so on. But I just wonder how much they knew about God, and they followed after some of these other gods because they didn't know any better at this point, or they didn't really know what God was all about. And
I think it'd almost be.
Hmm?
I think it'd almost be like a superstition kind of situation where, you know, if it's not raining, yeah. You know, we're all,
yeah,
you know, everybody has crazy stuff about superstitions that are just silly. And if they were in the habit of you know, worshiping this God of the rain, and then it would be hard to stop. You know, if the weather's not perfect, you know, you're gonna start thinking, well, you know, I'm gonna have bad luck because I didn't do what I did in the past. We're making it sound easy for them. I don't know that it would be. To Bill's point about what was their level of understanding, can we think that they were trained in their religion by how organized was the Jewish faith at this time, Samuel's time? They had rabbis, I believe, teachers.
Well, they had priests, and Samuel's one of these.
Yeah. And was that organized in any way that it was, you knew that it was your obligation to listen to and attend and be educated by your obligations as a member of the tribe?
It wasn't in the same way that, you know, we go to
Yeah.
church every week.
Yeah,
Hear a
Yeah,
message.
it just occurred to me that
But
Bill's point, I think, is probably
Mhm.
pretty well taken. These were uneducated people. They weren't formally churched, you know, as even the least of us are who believe. So it shouldn't be a shock that they drift off of the gifts that the Lord has provided for them, let them out of Israel or Egypt and all that.
and
Well, it was word of mouth too, wasn't it? They certainly didn't have this.
they didn't have a book, yeah. And
Stories.
at this point in time, it was very much it was more cultic, and I don't mean that in a pejorative way, the way that we think of cults today, but just that the religion was, I mean, we saw at the beginning of Samuel that Hannah and Elkanah were, you know, their family would go every year to
Right.
Shiloh to make the sacrifices.
Mhm.
And so it was tradition, but it was cultic. You would make the sacrifices, and they had the covenant that was there in the ark, right? But that's what they had. They had the covenant. They didn't have a Bible. They didn't have a church service every week. It was, and they didn't even have a temple at this point in time.
Mhm.
There was the, the altars that they said, and we see that Samuel sets up an altar to the Lord in Ramah, and that's where he lived. So that's where the people would go to get their. So I don't, and when you're talking about knowledge of God, I don't know that how many of them really knew all 613 commandments, remember whatever it was.
No, they had all those
But,
things at that point.
Everything that basically at this point, it was everything that Moses had received on Mount Sinai and communicated to the people. And that had been passed down through the priesthood. And so now Samuel is the recipient of that from Eli. So Samuel is now here, we're seeing in chapter 7, organizing just what you're saying, the people, gathering the people in order to teach them the most basic things about God, the very first commandment, no other gods before me.
I think that I look at a lot of this and I think this is a group of people or people wandering in the dark, coming to the light and discovering that if they come to the light, then things will happen in their favor, so to speak. And of course, it all is building up to the coming of Jesus when he is the light. But like the 20 years in the house of Israel lamented after the Lord. It's like they go along, and if things start getting bad, they go to the head guy, whoever it is, and say, what are we doing wrong here? Help us out. Pray to the Lord. Tell us how to get out of this jam. And they go along until they get into the next jam.
When Larry was talking about superstitions, I wonder how many of us have those, how many people do we know that still have even those little ones, like, knock on wood. I mean, it's just,
Hey, one night when my son 7 strikes in a row, man, I was doing everything exactly the same.
The people that will wear the same shirt when they watch the game every single week,
At least when Green Bay
One
makes
of
it.
my grandmothers was
playoffs.
very superstitious.
No,
Was
no.
salt over the shoulder and.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she had all kinds of superstitions.
The kid that got hit by the baseball and in New York at one of the Yankee games, and then they were in Cleveland playing, and they happened to go to the Cleveland game, and they said, "Oh yeah, Steinbrenner was there," and they said, "Oh yeah, I was the boy. You were the boy who got. Oh, you can be the bat boy tonight." So they made him honorary bat. Well, they won. You can't go home, son. Where you're.
Really.
Well, when I started medical school, my parents had gotten me a sweatshirt with the medical school logo. And so I wore it for my first test and I passed it. So then after that, I literally wore that sweatshirt for every single day.
You still have
And I like have it and I still wear it for anytime I have to take my board exam. Because anytime I didn't wear it, I didn't pass one. And so my superstition is I wear the sweatshirt and I eat little mini chocolate donuts and I pass every single one, but I still do it to this day.
And you can't wash it or you wash all the juice.
Right.
I kind of think it's we're kind of talking about the same thing. Not that, I mean, the sweatshirt doesn't actually have any inherent power. We know that, right? Well,
Now, wait a
but it's a
minute.
thing. It's the thing that you do, right? So, it becomes tradition, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I think when we, decide we're going to ascribe or put more faith in other things than God, then that's a problem, which, it was like, just like, Bevan's sermon this past Sunday. We want the broken cistern or the living water. Um, I had a friend I had a guy I met in college on the street named James. Some of you heard about him. He was homeless at the time. I don't know whatever happened to him. I wish I did. But my friends and I decided to go out and just walk the streets and talk to people about God. We met James, so we took him to dinner and we got him some church's chicken. He was telling us about his life. And that night he told us a story. He said that he was sleeping on the bus stop, at the bus stop on the bench, because that's where he slept. And he said the other night, this was like a week prior, there was a really bad thunderstorm. And it was so bad that he was scared. And so he got up and he prayed, and not in a like a bow my head pray, but he basically just shouted up at the sky, "My God is bigger than you, bigger than his fear, bigger than the storm." And the more I got to know James, the more I realized that he had nothing else but God. He would get a few things. We got him a crank radio one year for his birthday, so he could listen to the Christian station. And his stuff got stolen all the time. He couldn't hang on to anything, because he had it in the bag and it would just get taken. So he had nothing, he had to. And I don't mean to glorify his poverty at all. He should have had something. He should have had a home. He should have been taken care of. He needed health care. He couldn't get it. He had congestive heart failure. But I do know that without anything else to put his security in, his trust, his faith in, he only had God. And it was amazing to me, his faith, and I tried to learn from him. I don't think I did a very good job. But he got $1 one day from somebody gave him $1. He was on the side of the street, and then one of his friends who was also homeless walked by and said, "Hey James, do you have $1 I could borrow?" James said, "Here, sure."
Yeah.
Just gave it to him.
Wow.
I said, "What are you doing? Don't you need like $6 to take the bus to the shelter today, don't you?" And he said, "My God will provide. If I give him my $1 now, I'll have $10 in my cup by the end of the day." It was incredible. So
It's faith.
Yeah.
It's just.
learning to let go of all the other things that we put our faith in.
First time I went to the orphanage in Mexico with Mevin. We went to another church one morning, where they would bring in the children the children went to school half day on a rotating basis. So this group of children would be brought to this church in the morning, and they'd help them with their lessons before they went off to school for the afternoon and early evening. And one of the gals with us from here said, "I don't believe how happy these people are. They have nothing, and yet they're so happy." I said, "That's because they have their faith and they don't know about the things that we have." So they're very happy because they're happy with what they have and they don't need anything else.
Well, there's children in Tanzania.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
well,
This was the adults she was talking
No,
about.
well, the children.
Children lived in lean-tos.
And said that when I got back from Honduras, but
Mhm.
we go to Honduras or
Mhm.
Nicaragua or someplace, and people stand in line for 4 hours to get a pair of used eyeglasses. And they smile more than we do.
Yeah.
It's just obvious that, they take a bus that they can barely afford
Mhm.
or walk
Well,
for hours to get to the
What-
place.
Yeah.
and
When we were in Tanzania last year, we'd see these big piles of shoes. And then sometimes you'd see people digging through them until they found to the best.
Yeah.
You know, everybody, when they're through, their children have outgrown the shoes or they're through the shoes, they go in this pile. And people come along and help themselves.
And we were talking about
We don't know what that is.
idols and self being one of them. We have all this abundance in our country, and yet all we can do is sit around and complain and yell at each other.
Mhm.
You know, and other people are out there with nothing and they're happy and they're getting along. But, it makes no sense.
Well, once they turn back to God and Samuel intercedes for them. So it was like you were saying, they didn't even really know how to talk to God. They needed Samuel to do it for them. And then all of a sudden there's a threat from the Philistines again,
Right.
because they hear that they gathered at Mizpah. And so this is kind of repeating what happened in chapter 4.
Mhm.
The Philistines are coming against them, except there's a different outcome this time. Right?
Yeah. Philistines know not to take the Ark of the Covenant again.
But it doesn't even say they have the ark with them.
No, it
It
doesn't.
just says that Samuel interceded on behalf of them, and it's a different situation now because now Israel is putting their faith back in God, their trust back in God, not in the object, the holy relic, the ark, not in the other gods of the land, the Baals and the Astartes, but in the God of Israel and in the Lord. And when they do that, then it's not that the Israelites, win the battle. God wins it for them. It says that the Philistines are subdued and routed because the Lord thundered with a mighty voice, threw them into confusion. And so this was all God's doing. And it gives them security in their land for the rest of, we're told, the rest of the days of Samuel. Obviously, that's not accurate because Samuel's still alive later when they're fighting against the Philistines later on. But I think it means for the rest of the days that Samuel was judging, was leading, so things start to go south once they get a king. But as long as Samuel was in charge, we're made to understand that they don't have to worry about the Philistines anymore, and they have peace with the Amorites, this other group of people in the land. Any comments or questions on chapter 7?
The Amorites another tribe or?
Yeah, they're mentioned in Genesis 14 and 15 as another tribe that lives in the land.
Okay.
I don't know that we really know where exactly they were, but there were multiple tribes of the Canaanites that lived in that area. The Philistines, as I said last week, were people that had come across the Mediterranean Sea. So they were sea peoples. So they had come from the sea to like from Cyprus and those islands out there, and had come and settled along the coast of Israel and had started to push inward.
Were the Canaanites out of the way by this time, or were they still around?
They're kind of still around. So you have the Amalekites, the Amorites,
Well,
the
those are all
Moabites, the
Canaanite
Ammonites,
tribes.
they're all in that area. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, my commentary even said the Amorites is at this point in time is maybe just a generic word for the people in Canaan that were still there. So they had peace. So Samuel goes on a circuit year by year between Bethel, Gilgal, and Mizpah. And his home is in Ramah, and these places are all really close together. think, the first map I passed out at the beginning of class. That's Mizpah and Gilgal. And then, and Ramah, and Bethel is just a little bit north east of Mizpah. Not too far. So these are all pretty close together. He goes around, but mostly within the tribe of Benjamin.
When we say he judged, and that applies to all the prophets we've read about, they judged. Does that mean that he makes these stops in these various parts of the settlements and hears disputes between citizens and makes determinations and advice?
Yeah, pretty much. He's administering the law,
Yeah.
administering justice.
And yet, you know, we see in the next chapter that when it came,
Mhm.
apparently judging isn't enough for them. Well, I'm getting ahead of the story.
Well, I think we can go on to the next chapter then, actually. Next chapter is chapter 8. It's another short chapter. Who would like to read chapter 8 for us?
Can read it. Samuel grew old. He appointed his sons as judges for Israel. The name of his firstborn was Joel, and the name of his second was Abijah, and they served at Beersheba. But his sons did not walk in his ways. They turned aside and after dishonest gain and accepted bribes and perverted justice. So all the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel at Ramah. They said to him, "You are old, and your sons do not walk in your ways. Now appoint a king to lead us, such as all the other nations." But when they said, "Give us a king to lead us," this displeased Samuel. So he prayed to the Lord, and the Lord told him, listen to all that the people are saying to you. It is not that they have rejected, but they have rejected me as their king, as they have done from the day I brought them up out of Egypt until this day, forsaking me and serving other gods, so they are doing to you. Now listen to them, but warn them solemnly and let them know what the king who will reign over them will do. Samuel told all the words of the Lord to the people who were asking him for a king. He said, "This is what the king who will reign over you will do. He will take your sons and make them serve with his chariots and horses, and they will run in front of his chariots. Some he will assign to be commanders of thousands and commanders of 50s, and others to plow his ground and reap his harvest, and still others to make weapons of war and equipment for his chariots. He will take your daughters to be perfumers and cooks and bakers. He will take the best of your fields and vineyards and olive groves and give them to his attendants. He will take 1/10 of your grain and of your vintage and give it to his officials and attendants. Your men servants and maid servants and the best of your cattle and donkeys he will take for his own use. He will take 1/10 of your flocks, and you yourselves will become his slaves. When that day comes, you will cry out for relief from the king you have chosen, and the Lord will not answer you in that day." But the people refused to listen to Samuel. "No," they said, "we want a king over us. Then we will be like all the other nations, with a king to lead us and to go out before us and fight our battles." When Samuel heard all that the people said, he repeated it before the Lord. The Lord answered, "Listen to them and give them a king." Then Samuel said to the men of Israel, "Everyone go back to his town."
Thank you. So why do they want a king?
We could be like everybody else.
Also, they were let down by Samuel's sons. Samuel had
Yeah.
stopped traveling at this time because he had gotten really old. And his sons were supposed to be administering the judgments around the community, but they were misbehaving, taking bribes. And so people became disenchanted again, I guess, with the Samuel and the priests, and wanted somebody that would, uphold the law in a king, because Samuel didn't seem like Samuel was able to do it at this time.
It seems very similar to what happened with Eli.
Yeah.
Sons, yeah.
And I'm left to wonder why Eli got the judgment over his sons and Samuel not so
Didn't.
much.
Maybe Samuel was just too old at that point.
Hmm.
You like 98?
Frail or something.
Eli was 98, yeah.
It was 98.
Yeah, but in those days, Sarah was 100 and some, and she had a child.
That's true.
Oh, yeah.
Good point, good point.
Hmm.
No, thank you.
Who knows?
I also noticed that both Eli's sons and Samuel's sons, their sin was corruption. Both of them were taking dishonestly. They were taking stuff for themselves, accepting bribes.
County Round 15 Squad, which investigated public corruption.
I didn't want to
My
listen.
bad.
I'm sorry, I'm so long, I know how to turn it off since I've changed stuff, so. Now it's following me. And it's gonna keep ringing because I forgot about bells, it's gonna start coming through, so.
Hmm.
Power off. Working.
Opening power options.
Sorry about that.
They're great when they work, but when they don't.
Sorry.
No worries.
Did God talk to Eli like God talked to Samuel?
Hmm. Yeah, we do know that the word of the Lord was rare at the beginning of chapter 3, I think it said. Yeah, the word of the Lord was rare in those days. Visions were not widespread. And God spoke to Samuel to give a message to Eli. So
Yeah, when
that's a
Samuel
good
was
point.
young.
When Samuel was a boy.
Yeah, so that's why I wonder if that's why Samuel was spared.
I mean,
And up till this time, God had raised up leaders over Israel. It wasn't dynastic. It wasn't family based. They didn't pass down the judgeship from father to son until Eli tried to do that. And now Samuel's kind of doing the same thing. I get it, I guess, if you don't have anybody that you trust and to do it for you. But it's kind of the same thing where they'd always trusted God to raise up a leader for them. And now they're asking for a king, and they're asking for a permanent dynastic leadership, father to son. And they're trusting in that rather than trusting God to provide.
And that image that he gives of what's going to happen
Mm-hmm.
doesn't sound very good to me.
Well, Chris, is there any timeline of how long Samuel was able to do the judgments before his sons were taking over? Because it seems like, in chapter 7, we're saying Samuel went around the Israel and provided the judgments, and assumption is that the Israelites came back in line with God. And so they were following God's ways. And then at some point, Samuel's not able to do that anymore. And so he turns it over to his sons because God hasn't pointed out another person yet. And unfortunately, his sons are corrupt. And so the people probably start to lose faith in God because Samuel's not there and his sons aren't doing the proper job. So they see, hey, things aren't going so well anymore. God's not providing another Samuel for us. Look at over here at these other countries, they've got kings. Maybe we should do what they do. So, sometimes when things aren't going fair for us in our lives, we look and say, hey, maybe this would be better because it's working for that person over there, instead of keeping our faith in God and letting his time do his thing in his time. We seem to always be impatient.
Wonder if what if God would have said to Samuel, tell the people to be patient, another judge will be appointed, another judge will come along. Or is God stepping back and just allowing the free will of the people to be?
Samuel seems to be taking it more personally than God is.
Yeah. Well, he was the head guy, so to speak. The notoriety. Was he,
I don't think he thought of himself as
well,
notoriety.
did he or didn't he? I mean,
Well, he was the leader, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think he approached it in a way that we would hope all leaders approach their office. And he was trusting God and he was trying to lead with integrity. But surely he probably felt when the people were asking for a king, he probably felt in some way that he had failed.
his feelings were hurt.
Even that he had failed to ensure that the leadership of the people of Israel would continue once he was gone, because of what happened with his sons. And God is saying to him, don't take it personally. This isn't about you. This is about me. And this is about the way that the people are treating me, not you. I wonder how many times we have, encountered a similar situation where we care what other people think, we care what, or we feel like we failed, maybe. And, but it's not about us. And we need to listen to God saying, maybe just you gotta let go of control and you gotta just let them fail on their own.
Some tough love, huh?
It's hard to do that with your own children, I know.
I think the same thing as a parent. So my daughter's 17 and she's very good, but I do feel like that tug where you want to say, like your first instinct is I want to yell, right? I want to yell. I'm going to say, don't do this. This is the wrong thing. And I have really, I think in the last year or so, as she's gotten older, really have to take that conscious effort to say, you know what, this is not about me. This is about her growing up. And you have to kind of take that step back and say, it's not about me. And so this kind of resonated with me because I'm also in a leadership position at work where I have, where I think it's very easy to have that first gut instinct of Samuel to say, gosh, you guys don't like what I'm doing, or, everything can feel like sort of a personal attack if people don't want to do exactly what I say. And I really feel that like I take 10, 15 minutes to take a deep breath and say, it's not about me. And, sometimes people just have to kind of make their own bed. I think you said it I think later on, I think it was like the third sermon you gave on Samuel where, to Saul, it's too late, or you
made your choice.
But that really has kind of stuck with me. And so I think that you just have to kind of say, People have to make their own choices, but
I think the rest of us are here to tell you, other than Chris, that it doesn't get any easier when they become adults and you have to let go and let them do for themselves.
But you let them go and they go out there and they make mistakes but they'll be back. They'll be back. And I think maybe God said, relax, Samuel. They're gonna go out and mess around, but they'll be back. They'll come back. Now, how long it'll take, who knows, but
Oh, about 1,000 years or so.
don't we all go out and mess up in our daily living? And yet we return, we come back. It's like, the prodigal son, he's out there
Living it up.
feeding hogs and he said, my gosh, if I go back to my father's house and be treated as a servant, I'll be living better than I am now. And,
Well, he lived it up for a while and then he
you know,
didn't have anything left.
I also noticed that it's not all of Israel asking for a king. It's the elders of Israel. And then it, later says Samuel reported all the words of the Lord to the people who were asking him for a king. So there's a certain group of people that are asking for a king. Maybe they're representatives. They're meant to represent Israel.
I thought it was interesting that, the Lord really laid it out, what the people are gonna have once they get a king. And the last line says, you shall be as slaves.
Mm.
10th of your income, your best grain, your manservants and maidservants, best of your cattle. Put them to his work.
yeah, today's lexicon, it's taxes.
Yeah. Yep.
Tax you to death.
And the people say, no, but we will have a king over us. That we may be like all the nations. The king will govern us and go out before us and fight our battles. He's gonna fight them with you, kids.
Kind of points out the danger of taking the easy way out and putting, making one person in charge, in order to making, only putting one person in charge in order to make sure all the problems get solved, but then you have this long litany of, okay, but this is what's going to happen if you do that. I mean, our system can be very frustrating and take forever. People arguing back and forth, and maybe it would be easier to only have one person in charge, but the price you pay for that, we've seen what happens.
Mhm.
I like this part that says that then that we'll be like all the nations and our king may be judge us and go out before us and fight our battles.
Oh, yeah.
And where's
Sounds good.
and where's the king at in the battle? He's clearing the back row somewhere. We're schlep up front. He's
Go get them.
yeah. You go up a few verses, and the sons and daughters that he's gonna put out there. They're out in the front.
you're in the front of the chariot.
The kings get together and decide to have a war, and then they sit and everybody. Oh yeah, you guys go. You go first. Be my guest.
Well, you see, even David did that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just and president.
Things have really changed, huh?
It's the same old front door, same old house, just a different front door.
My Bible notes make the comment that it wasn't necessarily the asking for a king um, that was wrong, but their reasons for wanting a king, the reason they wanted a king because they wanted to be like the other nations around them. So I thought that's an interesting comment in the commentaries on my Bible. Their motive in asking for a king was to be like the nations around them. And that's in opposition to God's original plan. So their desire for a king, it was not their desire for a king that was wrong, but their reasons for wanting a king. And that's just in the commentary that I have. Oh, it's interesting.
Yeah, I was just about to read this from my commentary. The special warning for us in 1 Samuel 8 is the way in which authentic crisis may support the desire to be like other nations. Crisis of leadership created by Samuel's age and the corruption of his sons was real. But in the response to this crisis, Israel's authentic identity as a covenant people was compromised. Likewise, the church's greatest temptations to accommodation often come in struggles to deal with authentic challenges or to respond to genuine crises in the church or the society. A man whose father was a pastor in California at the start of World War II confided that his father had been guilt-stricken for his entire life because he had failed to say a word of protest when a close personal friend and neighbor of Japanese descent was taken to an internment camp and had his home and business seized. As a pastor in the community, he thought he might have made a difference, but he remained silent. Crisis of the war with Japan was real, but he compromised his deepest faith commitments because of the pressure of public sentiment and the fear of seeming different. It is a pressure to be like other nations that we all have known. At its simplest, it is a personal unwillingness to be identified as a person of faith in our communities and workplaces. At its most demonic, it is a church that accommodates itself to evil in the name of patriotism and produces a Nazi Germany or an ethnic cleansing. What do you think about that? We've been talking about this kind of in individual terms, but what about in communal terms? Because like I said, there may be individuals in Israel that didn't care to be like the other nations, that wanted to maintain their covenant relationship with God. But they live or die as a unit, not as an individual.
Well, throughout history, there's always been a small group of people calling the shots for everybody else, right or wrong. And sometimes they get it all messed up, sometimes they do it all right. That's just the way it's been ever since this king stuff started happening. We still have it going on today.
King stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
How do we respond to it?
That's the question.
You're to be a quiet and peaceful citizen.
We're supposed to give to Caesar what is Caesar's, I guess.
Yeah. You know, and unless the law is contrary to the will of God,
Yeah.
you are to render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, and to God that which is God's. And go to the voting booth and vote the best way you can. And be a responsible citizen in your.
Vote early and often.
Early and often.
Well, it depends on where you're at. Yeah.
Well, not just that. I mean, what about in the church?
Yeah.
You know,
You, if you're gonna be in the church, if you're gonna be a member of the church, you gotta be supportive of it. All right, and which includes supporting the church financially and with your service. I mean, that's what we're told to serve God. Now, You know, if we're just reading words for the sake of reading words, well, then we've missed the boat. But if the words say, you know, don't not only listen to what I say, do what I say. So support the programs, participate in the programs, do the stuff you can do. If it's nothing more than sending cards to people, that's your mission. That's your mission. If it's standing by the front door, greeting people when they come in, or passing out the bulletins, or directing the choir, or brown bag, or Manna Cafe, or whatever. Those are things. Support them, participate in them.
Sending cards to people was our dear Lois's mission.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Miss
Yeah.
her.
And maybe not everything goes the way you think it ought to go. But when you sit back and stop and look at it, if it's not hurting anyone, then get over it. It's just somebody else had another opinion. And maybe their opinion won out. But as long as you're still serving the same God, stop that.
Yeah, I'm thinking about Jeremiah because I have the text for Sunday, so in Jeremiah all day. I've been in Samuel too, but and about, you know, he was willing to speak out. Again, as you said, you know, if it's not hurting somebody, but what if it is hurting somebody? And he was speaking out against the people that were lying and telling falsehoods and hurting their neighbors, taking advantage of their neighbors and that kind of thing. And we talked in the youth group about how we can represent our faith in our public life, not just in private in our homes, but when we're in school or when we're at work or when we're out at the store, that kind of thing. And you know, maybe part of that is standing up and saying something when we see somebody getting bullied, or, you know, called a bad name or something like that.
Or hide somebody in their attic when they're being persecuted.
Or maybe it's, you know, showing an extra level of kindness that otherwise wouldn't be expected. I don't know that anybody in Israel would have been able to stop this whole king business. Samuel certainly was against it, and God said, "You're just going to have to let it happen."
Yeah.
Certainly is a lot of money wasted on it.
Mhm.
Castle over Copenhagen, and there's all these people, these guards standing around this place with machine guns.
There's a load all the way around
Yeah,
it too.
and so as we came out, well, don't forget to go to the basement and see the crown jewels.
That's why the
Well, you
guards.
could understand why all the machine guns were around. Gosh, we saw the crown jewels of England. It looked like a dime store compared to Copenhagen. Goodness.
Denmark.
Just the wealth that's spent on that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, and I was in a church in Spain. that had gold everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just ridiculous.
The Vatican.
Oh,
The Vatican's just unbelievable.
Well, I was in one in Mexico and everybody out on the street was begging, or the little children mainly were begging. And you walked into that amazing cathedral and you just see nothing but gold and all the decorative things that they wish to have. And that's where the money goes.
That's the way it is at the Vatican, right outside the Vatican, it's all the people begging.
Apparently the Oval Office looks pretty bright right now, too.
That's why. That's the way it's looking, more gold all the time.
And when they had the coronation of the king in Washington, look at how much money they spend on that.
And his own parade.
Gee whiz.
I was shocked at the Vatican that a lot of those things were actually stolen from the Romans.
Yes,
Oh, new.
yes.
Yeah, that a lot of the stuff in there was actually Roman artifacts that.
Look at the British Museum. They stole from everybody in the world.
Yes.
And Germans too. Stole all kinds of stuff.
Well, this sort of marks the transition from Israel being a
Mhm.
covenant community, you know, with God in charge, to being a kingdom monarchy. So other than kind of what Samuel points out here, what would you say is the difference between being a covenant community and a kingdom?
Everybody was pretty much on an even keel. There wasn't people that were better than others.
Hmm.
Other than Samuel being a judge, everybody else was pretty much even keel, where once that becomes a king, that all changes, because he's got different levels.
They did have the elders, which I think,
Well, yeah, but that's more the church side.
but I mean, that was one, but not, you're right. I mean,
Yeah.
they weren't all.
Mm.
I think the idea of the king, you think of the term divine right.
Hmm.
And they see the king as acknowledged by God as the supreme leader by divine right. And that's kind of different than the wise man judging and the prophet relaying the word of God. The king has been given that privileges to command and do and have, you know, that's the whole deal. Remember the old film, the Mel Brooks movie, History of the World Part Two? Old Mel as king, you know, he said it's great to be the king. That he was shooting the peasants, you know.
My Bible gives three conditions for a king. And it is to give influence and status, to judge,
Yeah.
and to go out before us and fight our battles.
Mhm.
Those were the three things that I considered important.
Look at Christianity and people who are Christians as a covenant community. And others that look to the world for everything or something else. But you know, the song, you know, turn your eyes on Jesus, look full in his wonderful face, and the things of the world will grow strangely dim
The light of his glory.
in the light of his glory and grace. And so, and it's freedom. And you can watch the news and laugh at all these people because it's a circus. And it's well, sometimes it's just plain entertaining to listen to some of them.
That's the point that
Not really. But it's just, I don't worry about it. They're gonna do what they're gonna do, and that's the way it's gonna be. I don't know what tomorrow brings, but I know who holds tomorrow.
we have a covenant in youth group that is, we post on it's actually hung on the cross, you know, downstairs. And there are 10 rules. Not really rules, I wouldn't call them rules, but they're guidelines for how we want to be together as a group. Right? And the youth decided to make 10 of them because they thought that that was, like the 10 commandments. We're gonna have 10 points of our covenant, right? But there are points like, we're gonna talk with each other, not about each other.
Good.
We're going to not bully each other. If somebody's being bullied, we're gonna tell an adult, that kind of thing. And everybody is, everybody is encouraged to participate, and nobody's going to be judged for what they share. That kind of, so. And God had a covenant with the Israelites, and that's how they were going to live together. Right? Then you get a king that comes in and he's going to make his own rules, and like you said, you're going to start having this hierarchy, which is exactly what Samuel is saying to them. You're going to be at his mercy, basically. You're going to be under his control. You're going to willingly give him all of this power over you.
Right. Yeah, I was gonna say, Chris, when you asked that question, what's the difference? I was thinking now with, or previously with the prophets and, Samuel, power was seen as from God. God had control, right? But now when you put a king in charge, you put a human in charge, power becomes out of control, if you want, because one person's going to want that power. And that's just human nature for us. We want to be in control. We want to control it. We want to lord it over other people. Right? How much do we own? How much do we have? How are you looking at people? Right? It can become almost like an idol, having that power. And that's what's going to be different now. And that's what I feel like Sam was trying to explain is, hey, look, God was in control. Now you're talking about putting one of you in control. And how is that going to sit when we're imperfect? Only God's perfect. That becomes the big problem for him. Maybe even David, man after God's own heart, gets a little power hungry.
Puts a man on the front lines. We just
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that power corrupts and absolute
Yeah.
power corrupts absolutely?
Yep. I think that's, where Samuel was trying to explain to Israel, this is where you're going. You're giving all the power to a human being. Is that what you really want?
We're right back to idolatry again.
Yep.
Which is where we
Yeah.
started.
Yep.
We started with the idolatry was going after other gods. Now it's wanting a specific person
Yep.
be in charge. But it's all about putting their faith and their trust in something other than God.
God.
Primarily.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments or thoughts? We don't have to go till 8:30. This was a shorter section tonight. There's only 44 verses. Counted. Something like that. It's 40 something. Okay, all right. Well, that concludes the time of Israel not being a kingdom. And next time, I think we're doing 9 and 10, mistaken. I'll send it out. I think it's 9. I think it's 9 and 10 that I have.
Yeah, 9 through 11.
9 through 11.
The anointing of King Saul.
Okay. All right, yeah, 9 through 11. Oh, yeah, because chapter 11 is short. That's right. So I did add 11. Yep. So we'll do 9 through 11 next time, where we get Saul. And we'll start the Saul narrative there. Okay. Prayer concerns.